Continuing on still this tracking series, we're going to get into the information that you need, as part of a tracking team. So this doesn't pertain, to being out there as an individual tracking or whatever, but as far as a format, or you have to have it, but some of the same things apply, and most of us that are hunters kind of do it anyway without even thinking about it. So without further ado, just read a little bit, as usual in the classroom to you. The success of a tracking mission is often dependent on the amount of relevant information obtained by the visual tracking team, or just the person, that hunter or whatever, upon the arrival of the initial commencement point, or the ICP. So as that team gets on the ground, they're going to do their thing, and try to gather up all this information that we're going to get into here in just a second. But this could apply to that, one person out there hunting. I always use the same example because, I'm a bow hunter, but I'm up in my stand, I shoot a deer, it takes off. My ICP is where I seen myself shoot the deer. So I'm going to go from that point on and try to determine, tracks, a blood trail, or something of that sort from that point forward. To enhance the team's chances of a successful follow-up, it must take a little time to obtain as much information as possible about whoever or whatever it is that they're out there looking for. This will give them a better idea. This will give them a better idea of who they are, what their abilities might be, descriptions, and any other necessary information to commence following the trail with confidence. Alright, information requirements. It's broken down into three categories. There's the information that you must have, information that you should have, and information that you'd like to have. And what they break that down into, I got some of it written on the board here behind me. The must have is in red. We just have an acronym for that. It's called Lynn Data, which is right here. LNDATA. Lynn Data. That's absolutely, you have to have. The should have should be descriptions of the person or persons to be tracked, or the animal or whatever. You should know what it looks like, so that you should have that. It's not always the case. Missing persons, usually a family would be contacted or something like that to try to gather that information, but a team might be sent out ahead of time, without that information, or that information missing, at the start point, just to try and cut down that time distance gap. Information that you'd like to have just provides a picture of the abilities, connections, or possible intentions of, the person or persons to be tracked. The training I got was actually a mixed group. One was actually a combat tracker, did some tracking overseas. Another instructor is actually on a search and rescue team, but the whole team itself, actually there was a third, and he was actually also on a search and rescue team, I believe, with the fire department. But they were from Arizona. They help out a lot and do a lot of missions, with border crossings and stuff like that. So all this stuff applies. I mean, they're just civilians. None of them were military or police or anything like that. But you start getting into missions like that, these people try to cross the border from Mexico and all that. It could be a dangerous situation. You got, the coyotes running them, and, chance of weapons and stuff like that, which is why this information is outlined the way it is. But that was their background. It was a lot of search and rescue stuff, out in Arizona. So, alright. So, on the information must-haves, or Lynn Data, which is right behind me, the first one being L is location, and location being your initial commencement point. The techniques used to determine that ICP are terrain association, if all you have is a map, or you have nothing. You know, look around you, terrain associate, see where you're at. You can plot the point with a GPS, mark it as a waypoint or what have you. Or, you know, if you have all your map reading tools and you know where you're at, you can mark it as a known point on the map. The second one is N in our Lynn Data, and that's the number of people to be tracked. So all this information you've either got ahead of time from, you know, if it was a missing persons and they're sending out a search and rescue team, they already pretty much have this information, but that actual tracking team needs to go ahead and get all this information, even if they've already been given it once they get to that ICP. So the N, number of people to be tracked, either information from victims or witnesses, or electronic surveillance, depending on what the situation was. There's a direct count method, an average pace method, and a comparison method. I think I just briefly touched on that or read over it in a past video in the series. And again, with that, once I get time to head out in the field, I'm going to show you the difference and what those are all about. Alright, the D in Lynn Data is direction. You can get that, you know, by a compass. And all it is, again, it's just a cardinal direction, so any old button compass, you know, doesn't have to be nothing fancy, we'll get that for you. Alright, the first A is assessing the age. So age is that first A. Assessing the age of the tracks to calculate the time and distance gap. That's where, you know, age and stands are going to come into play. And like I said, I'm going to try to get out as soon as possible and set one of them up so you guys can see what they look like, and, you know, if you want to set one up, you know, at your house or whatever, so you could do the same thing, then I highly recommend doing that. That's one of the key components to this. So how you go about assessing the age, you could have had information from victims or witnesses, again, electronic surveillance, or the deduction based on weather and time factors, which, you know, we're going to go over in the aging stands. Alright, the T is recording the type of footwear. Alright, footwear types. Footprint patterns are categorized as Western, heels, flats, cleats or lugs, and barefoot. Techniques for recording the footprint evidence is catalog, footwear database. They showed us they had these you know, field cards made up with the different different patterns of footwear. I mean, there's millions of them, but if you break it down into Western, heels, flats, cleats or lugs, or barefoot, you know, that have a couple examples of each, and you just put it into a category. Spore cards, it's just a card made up where you can put all this information on for the Lynn Data. Sketch pads, you know, like I said before, actually draw out, you know, what the pattern is, you know, on a little pad or something that you're keeping notes on. Digital camera, probably the easiest way to go. Nowadays, you know, you could take the picture with a cell phone and send that through an email right there on the spot. That's probably the quickest way to do it. And casting, you can actually take a cast of the footprint and you know, send that up to wherever that needs to go, be it forensics or whatever the case may be. Alright, and then the last A is any additional information that you can possibly get, you know, be it from witnesses or anything like that, and any other information that, you know, could affect what you're doing, or that could help out, you know, in conducting the follow-up. So, alright, information should-haves. So our Lynn Data is the must-haves. Let me just go ahead and write that down for you guys while we're here. So the L was location. The N was number to be tracked. The D was direction. And again, that's just a cardinal direction. The first A was the age of spore. You know, trying to discern or figure out what our time distance gap is. Type of footwear was the T. Again, camera, cell phone, probably the best way nowadays. So you could send it, you know, to multiple people. If you had more than one tracking team, you know, everybody can get that fairly quickly. And the last A was any other information. Alright, so in this video we discussed information that we need, you know, prior to conducting a follow-up. We talked about our must-haves, should-haves, and like-to-haves. And like I said, this Lynn Data is, you absolutely need that. You know, there's just no other way around it. And any other should or like-to-haves, you know, would obviously help you out. But get the must-haves. Again, you know, once I have time to get outside, I'm going to get into showing you guys some of the different techniques as far as, you know, counting tracks and direct count, stuff like that. Some of this information. Thank you guys for watching, and I appreciate your support again, and we'll see you in the next one.